You'll bet.
Hey, this is episode something of the wheel. Why am I so confused? I'm waiting for this coffee to kick in again. Memory is kind of exhausting.
That is not a lie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he drained me like a vampire, like a joy vampire.
Joy vampire. I like it. It's an apt description. He's just so physical all the time. Just like,
So wait, what was your name again?
my name is
one.
AJ Ryan.
AJ Ryan.
Yep.
Then I didn't know. In fact, I added you on Facebook, and I still didn't know that was you.
Yeah, Sloan is a pen name that I used for a little bit when I was journaling online, and it just kind of stuck. I have a lot of decoys, abusive relationship, and all that fun stuff.
So you have to keep decoys. So if you were journaling online, what was it? Blog?
Yeah, live journal, like emo blog style kind of stuff. I used to put my random, forced, prompted work up on a live journal. It wasn't stuff that I necessarily shared with audiences, but it was a good place for me to kind of throw things and see where it went from there.
How long did that go?
I think I was on LiveJournal for like 2 years. Never had a huge following. It was never something I took super seriously. It was just kind of a sounding board for the competition poetry I was doing in Phoenix.
Yeah, I always wanted to stop. I always wanted to try and do blogging or just writing in general. I'd like to write, be published somewhere. There's a few newspapers in Colorado Springs that some of my friends are published on, so I'm like, I know that idiot can't write well. I can write better. But I think I have to start with like blogging. But I don't know who reads blogs. Do people still do that?
Yeah, we're in a world of instant gratification. Lots of people love blogs. The only problem is when you are of any level of intelligence, actually having a successful blog is difficult because you want to say more than 50 words. Anybody of a certain level of intelligence wants to say 150 words or 200 words, and they have opinions about things that are beyond cats and food. And it makes it really difficult to gain a following and keep a following for any long period of
I
time.
didn't realize there was a cap at 50 words.
For average span of intelligence anymore, yeah. I apply for writing gigs on like Fiverr and stuff like that all the time because I used to peer review and edit a lot of stuff, and almost every gig is 50 to 75 words.
Really?
Yeah, nobody really has the time to get past that. That's why you see the 50 pages with some stupid meme and like 8 words underneath it to describe something irritating or generic.
Yeah.
That's all of the callings. Like, check out Craigslist. Literally, there are probably 50 ads for list writers.
List writers?
Yep.
Oh. Yeah, those. Top 10 celebrities, nip slips, whatever.
Yep.
List writers.
Yep.
Like the what the fuck button
Yep.
next to the bang zow pop button.
Click my AdSense, make me money. That's pretty much it. That's all you get out of a blog anymore is AdSense. Because there's no really other way to generate funds. So it's just clicks. And clicks any more than 50 words, you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of them. You're going to read one
Really?
article and move on.
But even a click to start out the article, does that count? Or are they just not going to share it? It's not going to go out there if it's more than 50.
Well, if they click it and share it, then you might get, 1,000 clicks. If a couple of their friends share it, and you figure nobody's got friends, so maybe 5 or 10 people on each individual Facebook. Whereas if you've got a 20-item list of, vegan foods that don't give you horrendous gas or some stupid shit like that, you get 50 clicks.
Yeah.
And then you get the 16 billion ads. And if you accidentally click on one, you just made that guy 15 cents. So, I mean, he's not mad at you, but your phone is.
Yeah, I just don't understand how to monetize on that, but I'd like to do it regardless
Mm-hmm.
of that, just because I like writing. But of all the things I do, it all has to be kind of bringing in money
Yep.
in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just going to keep going, I don't have enough in the bank yet to just do something because I like it entirely.
Yep. And I'm working on the same thing, but I have so much integrity as a writer that stooping to that is so hard. So I work my crappy day job that I hate to eat food on the table, and I try to write things of substance that means something to me. Kind of nice to actually start doing that again and bringing it to the Springs instead of leaving it in Phoenix where it died a couple years ago. Yeah.
What's Phoenix like? Not very supportive of the artistic community?
We had a pretty big slam community there. It actually wasn't too bad. A lot of the more prevalent, like Mighty Mike Big E, came through a couple of times. Big Papa E used to frequent, and it was really cool. And I got super into the culture. And then I got my head shoved so far up my ass, I forgot for a couple of years in Washington. Actually, shockingly enough, and in spite of being around so many artist communities, deader than a doornail when it came to any kind of performance poetry.
How so? Like, what does dead mean?
I would
just no audience, or
yeah, no audience. I mean, there were poets that got together in small groups, and there would be little mics and small events to go to and work together, but it wasn't something that people were actually actively participating in and taking an interest in. Whereas in Phoenix, I mean, I was like almost like a local celebrity thing when you'd go to a slam, because people go, oh, I remember this that you did. And it was exciting. And then you go to Washington, and it's like, where's the weed? And, I'm in Colorado. Yeah. It's funny to say that, but people seem to care a little bit more about the performing arts here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a weird thing that has come up once or twice. That always getting recognized, like, makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know what to do.
I don't either.
Like, if someone comes up to you and like, hey, you're that person. Like, yes. And then you both stand there like, so am I supposed to start doing stand-up immediately, or what am I supposed to do?
You going to ask me something of substance? Do you want to hear about something, or are we just going to stand here and stare at each other awkwardly?
And even then, if they start talking about something, I don't really want to hear it.
No.
It's a rare occasion that I'm like needing someone to talk.
Well, and in the poetry community, a lot of the questions that they ask you is like, what were you thinking when you wrote that? Or what was your experience that prompted you to do this thing? And it's like, none of your fucking business. You came here to listen to my poetry, take what you can from it. That's what the performing arts is about. Don't ask me about my miserable life. You don't want to know.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Yeah, I when I was living in Denver, my girlfriend at the time would take me out to open mic poetry slams. What's up, dude? You want to come? Are you hiding from yourself? Is that how high you got? You're like, I need to find me. Just okay, cool. Yeah, you're good. You're good, dude. Don't worry, buddy. We'll get you a dish of water. So, yeah, my girlfriend would take me out to these slam poetry mics, and very occasionally there would be someone who'd come through that was traveling, doing poetry and making somewhat of a living on it. But the rest of the time, I would just get angry. I'd just get so fucking mad. Like, it's weird when someone does a poem and then I'm in the back and I want to hurl my bottle at them. Because bad poetry is the worst.
It really is. It just makes you look like a pompous fuck. Like, you can walk up there and tell a bad joke, or you can do a skit really poorly, and people are going to laugh at you. And to a certain extent, that is laughing with you. But when somebody laughs at you when you're performing a poem, it's like, oh, man. Yeah. Like, there's no coming back from that. You can't twist it. You can't anything. It's like, oh, I suck.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And for as little as I really know about poetry, I grew up with it in a sense of a weird way. It's like I grew up really farm boy. And between, like, my family watched WWF wrestling and talked about cars, and it wasn't really my thing. I was never interested in that. Like I found a tattered book of W.H. Auden, and like he's still my favorite just because it was the only one in like the farm town. Like I get
It's an
really
interesting choice.
Yeah, just something about his style I like. I know I'm supposed to like the ultimate greats, but that's my favorite to read.
Who actually likes the ultimate greats? You know, I talked about that in high school with my freshman English teacher, whose entire poetry unit is actually taught around my poetry at this point. And brag. But he started off the poetry unit every year with music lyrics from like Marilyn Manson and like Rage Against the Machine and all of these different bands, and spanning several genres. I mean, we even broke into like some Tom Waits and Janis Joplin, and just kind of spun off on all of these places. And he'd walk up with these big tattered books, and he'd be like, "This is poetry," and he'd drop it in the garbage. Like he had this book specifically for the physicality of dropping it in the garbage.
Yeah.
Like nobody fucking likes Emily Dickinson. Nobody likes Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Yeah.
Nobody. It's garbage. It's dry. In a lot of ways, it's insipid. It was something to do at the time, and I think we're in an age of expression now that is so much more potent and so much more relevant that it's really not fun for us anymore. We're entirely too engaged of a generation to deal with, Robert Frost.
Yeah.
I don't want to read 8 lines about a snowflake. I don't give a fuck about a snowflake. In my opinion, a snowflake is some rat ass political term now. So, I mean, and I guess I could read it in lieu of that laugh pretty hard, but that's not what Robert Frost intended.
Yeah, a lot of those words have different social connotations now. It's not... T.S. Eliot is not the same.
No.
Doesn't sound the same at all from scratch.
And you can't say E.E. Cummings in a classroom anymore.
Yeah.
You say E.E. Cummings and kids are going to Cummings.
Yeah, Cummings. Do I have a charger? Yeah, maybe in my backpack. Yeah, I do like Cummings, but more as a joke writer. I think that's the thing. One of the reasons I like W.H. Auden is all of his philosophies on writing poetry, also translate to joke writing. And because I studied him so much, when I saw poetry performed at these slam mics is what made me like borderline violent. For like you're just shitting all over.
Yep.
It's the worst.
Yep. Shitting and puking and crying all over and making everybody watch. It's
Yeah, I wanted to throw something at this one lady, because one thing W.H. Auden said that really resonated with me, and I think works for almost all writing, is that a poem to him is like a novel condensed into 12 lines. So every word has to be a chapter. Like every word has to be perfect. You have to say so much with perfect words and a love of language. And then I would go up or see these poetry slams, and some lady would spend 10 minutes on how beautiful her vagina is, just dancing around it, using the biggest word she can so everyone thinks she's smart. And like you could just say, "I like my vagina," and get off stage.
Talking about willows and metamorphosis. I bet both of those words were in that poem. Am I correct? Yes.
Like just get to the point of the thing, because there's better words, which is like, "My vagina is cool," would get more of that meaning across. And if you just fucking left after that, it's so infuriating.
Well, and those are the poets that actually do read old poetry because they're trying to emulate something. And it's like, Walt Whitman got away with 5-page long sentences. That doesn't mean that anybody else is going to get away
or can
with that.
Do that.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah. It's a brand, and people need to create their own brand anymore. And that's why I really love slam poetry, and why my teacher started bringing in music and slam poetry instead of the traditional stuff. Because in this generation, we don't have a love for language, but we do have a love for imagery. And I think if you get it across the right way, you can use $1 million $1 words and paint a prettier picture than you can with willows and metamorphosis.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's also something that I've noticed with my writing more in stand up. It, I try and write in notebooks
Mm-hmm.
and stuff because I've noticed when I type on a laptop or write on a phone, I'm always engaging this part of my brain that really gives a shit what other people think. So like I try and use bigger words, and I've actually had the conscious thought like I better make this sound smarter so people think I'm smarter. But that doesn't really matter. I'm like getting this fake outward personality is getting in the way of my writing and actually what I'm communicating. So I try and start everything out by making sure it's in a notebook because it'll be the actual thought, the like really what I think scribbled in the margins with all kinds of garbage, but it's only for my eyes, so I know it's all there.
There's something to be said for unplugged. There really is, because I think that it's not even just subconscious. I think that there is an energy there when you're sitting there on your phone. I mean, that thing is teeming with social implications. Whether you're in a notepad or on a Facebook like status update, it's filled with social connotations. So I feel the same way you do. Why I actually have this notebook is because of that. I feel like I get more nervous typing, and I start backspacing, and I'm like, I could tack on 2 more syllables and make that a lot more dynamic. No, it's not dynamic. That's just pompous.
Yeah.
And gross.
Because there has to be a part of your brain that registers whenever you hold your hand like this and get ready to write. You're like sending a picture of your dick or talking to your mom on both sides of the spectrum. So it can't, all that shit.
Accidentally sending a dick pic to your mom?
Yeah, exactly. All that shit has to get in the way of your unfiltered thoughts. But I get back to, I personally really like poetry, even though I haven't read any in a while. I focus more on joke writing now, but there's a lot of similarities between them. But I think writing is at the core and base of all creativity. In all the projects I've had, it always seems to go back to writing, and then poetry is like purest form of writing when it's good.
Yeah, when it's good.
When it's good. I
can agree with that entirely.
Like I remember one of the first jokes is it's not even classified by a joke because it's a W.H. Auden one-line poem. He said that thing about having a like a novel condensed, and then someone asked him like, "So what do you think about yourself?" And he said, "My face looks like a birthday cake in the rain." And I was like, "That's a joke. Like that works. That functions entirely as a joke."
Well, and a lot of poets can function entirely as comedians too. I mean, they flip flop back and forth. Big Papa E's one of my favorites, and he's funny as hell. He really is. Some of his pieces are really emotionally driven, but some of them really are game for a laugh. That's what he's going for. Because when it boils down to it, like you said, a lot of art just boils down to writing, and all we're really trying to do is cite some kind of emotion of some people. And it doesn't matter if it's a tag or if it's a hook line. It's all going to boil down to the same key components.
So I wonder why aren't more poets comics? Like what? I wonder what the distinction is there by some people. If it's so close together, what changes between? Because there's comedians like Rummery who will be amazing as a club act. Like he's really cultivated a skill for crowd work and silly bits about topics that will just destroy on the road. I really like his style, but it couldn't be further away from mine. Where like, I'll see you headline loonies soon. It couldn't be farther from mine and the way I like to write, which I'm always trying to constantly get further away from feeling like I have to do the joke and more towards an actual emotional or philosophical point. I'm like always trying to move my writing more in that direction, but to keep it interesting and entertaining on the whole. So they like comedy is very broad in that way. and I assume poetry can too. But I wonder what makes some people go like no poetry, and what might make me go like no stand up.
I think a lot of it's just personal distinction at this point anymore. Like, I think the line in the sand when it comes to any performing art, ranging from speech, black book, stand-up comedy, show poetry, pretty much anything that puts a mic in front of your face that's not like music, it's all pigeonholing. Because, for example, I don't know, do you know who Jamie Kilstein is? He actually hates me, fun fact. He
Really?
blocked me on Facebook when SB 1070 came out in Phoenix, and he tried to sit there in his little New York flat and talk about border states and immigration issues and everything like that. I jumped down Allison Kilkenny's ass and started telling her, you know, you need to come down here. You need to take a look at what's going on. This isn't just about Mexican people. This isn't a racist thing. You need to be in the thick of it. You guys are reporters. Don't do this. Like, you're buying into the propaganda. But if you ask anybody on Jamie Kilstein's personal pages, some people will call him a journalist. Some people will call him a comedian. Some people will call him a poet. If you ask him, he's a poet, and he has been forever. Yes. He was very first and foremost a poet, and that's how I discovered him.
I've only known him as a comedian.
Yeah, comedian. See, yeah, but Citizen Radio. He's a journalist. I mean, if you really look at it, the guy takes so many hats, and it's not about that anymore for him. He doesn't talk about his distinctions anymore because we create those. You're physically capable of doing whatever. Some of my pieces are funny. Does that make me a comic? No. Does it make me not a comic? No. I'm an artist, and I get up on stage and I talk to people, and I incite emotion, and that is what my medium is. And it's up to you to create that.
Yeah, that's always an interesting thing to me about how people want to classify you in a box. So, like, even people who want to have a different distinction also want to classify themselves in a box. It's very weird. I was trying to write, and this is something I need to talk to more transgender people about, because I don't like, I like to write bits and jokes and chunks of material on topics that might be touchy, but I don't like to do it just without knowledge or without doing any research, because if you're not empathetic to both sides, like, you can't really understand it. But I remember I had a friend a long time ago who was transitioning into a man, and when she was like saving up money before the surgery, and she said, so when I transition, and then I'll have the surgery, and then I'll be a man. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then it came up again when Trump said transgenders aren't allowed in the military.
Yep.
And I was like, so is it just people transitioning? Because, like, there might be an argument for that if you're undergoing huge changes in your hormones. But, like, if you're done transitioning, now you're just a man or a woman. So, like, how does that...
Yeah, I actually take the unpopular opinion there, because the argument is that it doesn't matter what phase of transition you are in, but I do sit on that fence right there, because I have been friends with a lot of transgendered people, and I have been there for a lot of the stuff that they've been going through and kind of helped them through all of it. And gender dysphoria, that's a real thing. Taking somebody and putting them in a combat position, and then there not being access to hormones or medication for a long period of time due to conflict or mechanical failure, whatever it may be, when those hormones start to wear off, that gender dysphoria starts to set in, and that can cause suicidal tendencies. That can cause serious combative behavior. The person can start, paranoia really starts to set in. I mean, I don't know. It's just a hormone flux thing. That's scary.
Yeah.
So I could understand from a medical standpoint why that would not be conducive to a military life. Right. And it's not that I don't think that they shouldn't have equal rights to everybody else, but if you're already finished transitioning, then you are who you are, boo. Like, you go do whatever it is you want to do. But until that point, who gets to be put at risk?
Right.
I mean, it's not just you. Your entire team, Italian, whatever.
Yeah.
And,
But
know?
that was one of the things that came up when I was talking to a few people about that. Like I would be like, so when you're done transitioning, now you're just a man
Mhm.
or your preferred gender. And I had a couple people say like, no, you're transgender now. And I was like, no, you'd just be your preferred gender. And I was like, do you know how pissed I would be if I spent that much money on becoming an in-betweensy? Like, I want to be a girl if I spend that much.
Well, and it wouldn't be harder. It's not as hard for guys, honestly. It's easier to turn a pole into a hole, is the saying.
Really?
Yes, because I can see why female to male transgendered would still feel transgendered no matter what. Because I don't know if you've ever looked into the science of the whole thing, but essentially it's a balloon. It's legit a balloon and some skin that they stretch around, and there's like a button, and it like makes everything. They can't create muscle, you know? That is a literal living muscle. Yeah. And so I can see why it would feel that way, but I think it's all, again, this is all pigeonholing. Like, you know, I sit here with my shaved head and my dress on, and everybody's like, how do you identify? What are your pronouns? Right. They, them pronouns? Do you like they, them pronouns? It's like, no. I am not a, you know, gender fluid, pansexual, panda bear, fairy princess, whatever the distinction may be. I am who I am. Yeah. Call me what you want, dude, ma'am, chick, sir, whatever tickles your fancy. I think we're all too preoccupied with distinction. Period.
By the way, hey Romery. Anyway. Sorry. Yeah. That's always been an interesting thing to me. Is also moving towards masculinity has to find, and I have a couple theories on like how it's changed over the last couple generations and started some of this stuff. But it started with the idea that like, hey, I can not like cars and also still be a man.
Yep.
But that has to be part of it. Like, oh, you identify as a man, put on your backwards hat and let's bro out. Yep. Like, but that's not me.
And then turn the shoe on the other foot and be, I'm a chick and I like cars and I'm an empowered woman. Yeah. Like it turns into all of these man things that used to make you distinctly unmanly if you didn't do them. You turn around to women in the same light and women start doing all of these things and it makes them strong women. And it's just really weird to throw distinction balls around the court and see where all of them land. And it really teaches you a lot about people.
Yeah, I feel like the things you're interested in don't really have much to do with your genitalia.
Nope. I can honestly say that. I don't think about my genitalia frequently when I'm pursuing my hobbies. Those are just my hobbies.
Yeah, you're never like, well, my vagina's telling me to write this, so I better like honk out with my mind and
right.
Go into stasis.
I'm gonna paint this with my vagina. Let's do this.
I'm sure someone's done that.
Oh, lots of people have done that. Yeah. There's been entire gallery openings for that. And it's just a bunch of blotches on a page. I mean, you know, a strong pelvic floor means something, but I don't think you need to stick a paintbrush up there. I don't think that's the proper use of Kegel exercise. I don't know. It could just be me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answers.
You can make money off of virtually anything, though. I mean, if honestly somebody just freaked out and was like, "Oh, vagina."
Recommended as being strongly vaginal. The word itself makes some men uncomfortable. Vagina.
The vagina monologues.
I love that part.
I just love her, honestly. Yeah. She's living proof that if you can pick a thing and that you can capitalize on it like nobody's motherfucking business. She doesn't talk about anything else. I mean, yeah. I've gotten some good terms from her though. There's a special that is still available on online where she refers to the vagina as a coochie snorcher. And I think that was like the best thing I have ever heard for vagina ever. Okay, there's a chick on the podcast and we're on vaginas now. This is really stereotypical.
Right. Well, the painting thing is so I feel because there's a lot less dudes who are successful with painting with their dick. it doesn't have the same artistic merit.
Can you
or like in tone with like there's plenty of them on chat roulette. They're around.
What do
Okay.
they do? Are they using it to like finger paint only with their dick, or are they
Pretty
shoving like a
much.
thin thing up their urethra and using it to paint? Because that's
Man.
about sounds is a
Yeah, it's
legitimate
like
fetish. So
The
I
most I've seen is like finger painting style, but yeah, someone should really capitalize on the thin horsehair brush
mean, yep.
in the urethra. We can finally move dick painting into the level of artistry.
Give you a little bit more control.
Mm-hmm. That's a thing I've thought involving masculinity is at a certain point the ideas of masculinity were like man, I wish I could remember because Marco broke it down for me one time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's stuff like honor, responsibility, and courage, and something else.
Mm-hmm.
But tenets like that.
Scratching your dick, is that the
Yeah.
the last one?
But that's where
Ball scratching.
Yeah, but that's where it gets weird. Is I think somewhere around Generation X, like it got commodified between generations.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, it's not so much like you command respect and honor and self-worth, and now like it gets sold to the next generation. It's like, well, if you buy a big car and like an Eagles jersey, then you're a man and you don't have to take care of your kids.
Yep.
And I think that kind of starts it where like I've noticed I have a very big family, and all of my uncles did basically that. They all have kids that they barely pay attention to or take care of. Their wife is always like stressed and freaked out, but they sit in their man cave and drink beer, and they're like, "I'm the man of the house. God damn it, patriarchy."
That's exactly my dad's side of the family too.
Yeah.
We're from South Dakota, so it's country too. Yep, that Midwest mentality.
Mhm.
Yep.
But then that gets what I think that gets like called toxic masculinity in a way. Is that's what that gets when I really think of it as commodified masculinity. It does become toxic in the way that people abuse it.
Yeah.
But I think
capitalized masculinity isn't any better. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter if you're, in your overalls and pitching
Right.
hay and doing all that, or if you're in skinny jeans and eyeliner, and
yeah,
it doesn't really matter. It's
Right.
all shit.
the guy with skinny jeans and eyeliner who has like courage and responsibilities to his family, I feel like it's far more manly than the guy with his pitchfork who never,
Yep.
takes care of anyone. And but that, yeah, capitalist masculinity, I think, has a reaction to it, which is obviously for good reason negative, a negative reaction to it. But then it also gets lumped in with just masculinity in general. You know what I mean?
Well, and when you boil it down a little bit further and get to the mud of the issue, it just boils down to stereotyping, because we talk about, a man, regardless of his skinny jeans or his overalls, if he takes care of his family, that's the integrity of a man. But isn't that the integrity of a woman as well? Like a woman can, cook and clean the house and be that stereotypical Betty Crocker mom, but if she
Right.
can't talk to her kids about the things she needs to talk about, and she doesn't show up to the soccer games, and she's sitting at home swallowing Klonopin and bonbons, then she's not a mom either. But
Right.
according to our picture of reality, she's,
And that is
the
somewhere
mom.
that I was kind of driving the conversation a little bit. Is I can only speak to masculinity on that front and how it changes, but I don't really know the female version of that argument, because it would be the same ridiculous thing to like say, stare in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant rubbing my balls is what Bill Burr says. Is that idea.
Yep.
But it would be, yeah, as ridiculous as I noticed something when I was dating a lot younger, and I had a series like 7 years or so, just under a decade of dating vegan types, especially when you're younger, and like the women my age would get more militant about it because it's their first exposure to it.
Yep.
That I dated like 5 girls in a row who would refuse to cook or clean. And at the time, I was like, well, that's fine. That's not your prerogative. But then if I would leave and come back, they're like passed out in a mess with a hot pocket on their chest. And I was like, maybe it's regardless of femininity and what that means, maybe you should learn to do that just for yourself.
Right?
You know?
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic, and it doesn't matter which stereotype you're presenting.
Yeah.
It's an asshole's an asshole. A lazy person's a lazy person. I need to clean and I need to take the trash out, but I don't care if you have a dick or not. You need to clean and you need to take the trash out too,
Same
motherfucker. Like, it's just it's a back and forth.
Yeah, I think of it as the patriarchal setup. Like, I think that setup it's like communism or whatever. Like, in theory it does work, but the power is so easily abused that it tends to not work. But I think of it as like a good way to have a relationship is like delegating the responsibilities between the two of you, like a partnership. And if that is one, like the girl is better at cooking and cleaning, then that's what you delegate, and you have the other side. And also
there's no
vice
shame
versa.
in that. I mean, there's a lot of women that harbor a lot of shame in that because they sit there in their house and they clean and oh well, people think that I need to be out and doing this and being a certain way, and then stay-at-home dads have the same problem. I have friends, a lot of friends that were stay-at-home dads. Yeah,
stay-at-home dads is a funny one, especially if they feel inadequate. Is very silly.
Yep.
Because then they'll bitch about stuff that like, oh, I wish that was my lot in life right now, of like taking care of a kid and eating cereal in my pajamas. Like, that would be great. Not have to go to the construction site at 6 a.m.
Yep.
Would be amazing. But the attached, like, perceived unmanliness about it is like more so than the actual great responsibility you get of like being in charge of and having to take care and raise a kid. You are
responsible for life, like, and people belittle that. And my ex was that way a lot when I stayed home with the kids. He was always, I wish I could stay home in my pajamas and take care of these kids. And I'm like, you work 9 hours a day, you come home, you play your tank game, you go to bed. You know, I work 24 hours a day, and like, that doesn't stop. Kid wakes up in the middle of the night, I'm up. And when he was home during the day and he was like, this is so hard, and it's like, yeah, guess what? My job is just as hard as yours. Your whiny babies, they leave. They're whining about cheeseburgers and they leave, and then you get new whiny babies that also leave. My whiny babies don't leave, and they ask me why all the time. And it doesn't matter if you're a mom or a dad. If you deal with that every day, you deserve a gold medal. You really do. It's complicated, it's irritating, it's gross. I mean, you deal with more gross crap working at home as a parent than you will ever deal with in the fast food industry. You don't know where that mess came from. You don't know how long it's been there. You don't know how long that Cheeto was under the table that he managed to get his fingers on. And it looks black, but you know what? That's where immune systems come from. If you can roll that off your shoulder, I don't care if you've got tits or not. You're a good parent, and that shouldn't be a stigma. Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm always really thankful for the fact that I get grossed out by specific things. Even in conversation, I'll get grossed out. But like when it comes to the reality of it, it doesn't faze me at all. Like vomit and shit on the carpet, and you just deal with it.
Yep. I'll catch it. I see somebody about to puke. I'm like, that carpet's not cheap.
Yeah.
That's a $1,700 deposit. Like, let's catch this and go.
Yeah. I actually quit smoking weed when I was 14 because I was the oldest of all my cousins. And I've taken like a lot of babysitting jobs, mostly to family, because I used to take care of them. As in, all my uncles would show up for their weekend at my dad's house with their kids, and then they would just pawn off the kids on me and go drink.
Well, and it's family only because you're a guy, and that's just weird.
Yeah. But like, as the oldest cousin, I had to take care of all of them. So it was just, after a while, completely natural. But when I started smoking weed, it got really difficult to like manage 8 kids while too high. Like, just, The time I quit was the previous night. I had to take care of 8 kids and get them all into bed and situated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just high out of my mind at the party that was going on, and like my little cousin Corinne had like pants on her head and like like a hole stretched through that I just ripped, and they're like, good enough, and get you on the couch, and like there's a blanket that's really a big t-shirt. He's like, this is uncomfortable, and I was like, you can't do it, and just passed out on the floor.
Welcome to real parenting, Nyland.
Yeah.
That's real parenting. Because I don't care what anybody says. The distinguishment between babysitting and parenting is that you feel like you're too high when you're babysitting, and you know that you're not high enough when you're a parent.
Yeah.
Because I smoke copious amounts of weed to deal with my children. And granted, one is autistic, one has CP, very possibly. We are still in preliminaries for diagnosis on that, but life is crazy. And I am a parent with Asperger's anyway. So me having my neuro issues myself without pot, I'm pretty sure I would have drowned my children by now. And it's horrible to say live, and don't call CPS on me, anybody. Recorded, whatever. Yeah. But, you know.
But thank you, miracle drug.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, not only does it make me socially capable, but I can just say don't do that and walk away. And when the ketchup lands on the floor, it's just that looks like a dinosaur instead of not again.
And I've been sober for 2 years now from drinking, but that one was always the one that I would go to. And that's why I quit smoking weed at 14, because I was like, well, even when I'm near blackout hammered, I can still take care of these kids. And it makes it somewhat easier. It's going to be a little wonky, but when I was high, it's just impossible for me. I just couldn't do it. I think it affects me a little strange. So I'll have the same amount as my friends. And I mean, because I quit at 14, my tolerance is very low.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't seem to have the same reactions as other people where they can just chill out and enjoy themselves.
Well, it's a drug, isn't it? I mean, you got to look at it from a broad spectrum standpoint. You probably don't react the same way as I do to Klonopin. Probably don't act the same way I do when I drink booze. Because if I drank booze and tried to take care of my children, oh damn!
Yeah,
I don't think that would work. I get a little bit too loose in the brain for that. But yeah, I mean, it's my medication. Weed's my medication. I use it to do things like this. I'm high as fuck right now. And I can talk to you right now, and I can look you in the reflection of your eyes, kind of, sort of. But yeah, that's what makes me regular. You can't tell, but you would be able to tell if I came here, 3 hours shy of a bowl.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that comes up a lot in Colorado, which is fine. I always get weird looks when I'm living in Colorado and I don't smoke weed.
I've noticed that. Everybody's like, I don't smoke weed. Everybody goes, I
know.
It's like, isn't that a personal choice still? That's like looking at me funny for not smoking crack. Personal choice. You
don't smoke crack? It's amazing.
Right. Everybody's doing it.
Well, that's interesting that between your kids. So one of your kids is like pending diagnosis on cerebral palsy?
Yeah, we're still getting specialists in order. I mean, state healthcare. Hello. I'm probably going to be seeing a diagnosis maybe in 5 or 6 months once they get us to the first specialist to do the preliminary, and then we got to schedule the MRI, and they got to do the MRI on the brain. But he's 13, 14, 15 months old, and he doesn't walk, crawl, anything. He doesn't sit up on his own. His back is very much not in the mind frame of bending. He's got the arm and the choking issues. You can tell that the respiratory is not 100% there. His eye pulls in, and we've dealt with CP a lot in my family. My mom used to work with federally displaced youth in group homes. There were a lot of kids there, special needs she had to be certified for. I used to volunteer with autistic kids. When you do that, cerebral palsy comes hand in hand, actually, surprisingly enough. Especially nowadays, a lot of kids with autism actually double up, and they've got both. and, and that's really fun. Nonverbal and issues with the movement. That's fantastic. But yeah, we're in the preliminaries.
Okay. Yeah. So your son's really young, 15 months.
Yeah, he's just a baby.
I see. That's why it's still pending diagnosis. My friend Marco owns the theater. He works in the Army, and he was explaining to me on the podcast some of his gripes with being a government worker, and that was one of the things he said is doesn't matter if you did a good job, doesn't matter if you did a bad job, doesn't matter if you went above and beyond, doesn't even matter if it worked. It's did you follow approved procedure?
Yep.
Is the only whether he said if you're trying to get a woman a house, it doesn't matter if she actually gets that house or not, as long as you followed approved procedure.
Yep.
That's one of those things that stuff like that can be so infuriating. The time and paperwork it takes in between things.
And what is appropriate or what is approved is not always what is best in a lot of cases. Like my son, my oldest one, he's autistic. I don't care that I don't have a formal diagnosis. Do you know how much money it would have cost me to go to 2 more psychiatrists and another specialist and do 6 months of OT and all of these things just to get some hack in a chair to go, yeah, I guess you're right about your kid.
Yeah.
Like, no, I knew I was right about my kid a really long time ago. I could do speech therapy and occupational therapy at home. We're going to be working with yoga for the cerebral palsy for my youngest.
Nice.
It's information is power anymore, and procedure's great and all, but we have these cell phones and this interwebs for a reason. And if you have half a brain, it's not that hard to take care of the shit. It's really not.
Yeah, I don't really know what autism is, like the actual symptoms of it. I mean, if you argue with anyone online ever, it'll come up. And like you kind of, but I don't know what, like verbally, if you were to say what they are. I just know that there's a lot of guys online who won't look you in the eyes and don't know what to do with their hands.
And that's a pretty good indicator. But autism spectrum, no matter how any doctor likes to put it, you get all the legal and medical mumbo jumbo in there. It starts to get super confusing because autism is a diagnosis of elimination. Most people start off, my kid has ADHD, my kid has bipolar disorder, my kid's schizophrenic. My kid has, sensory issues, blah, blah, blah. But
so they start off with the Looney Tunes is what they first think it is.
Yeah, and what it really is just, it's a neural pathway disorder. So you exhibit these symptoms of several different things. I have obsessive compulsive tendencies. I have bipolar tendencies. And you fall on so many parts of the spectrum of mental illness that autism really just means that you're kind of sort of fucked up in a lot of different ways.
Really?
Yeah, you're like a jack of all fucked up trades. And you just steal like one little thing from a million different places. And like I have sensitivity to harsh light. Gives me social issues. If bright lights flash in my eyes, I will forget entirely everything that is going on around me, near me. And I'm not talking cop lights. I'm not a paranoid motherfucker. I'm just talking about lights in general. I have social cognitive disorders.
You very quickly had to. That's come up before.
Yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, I'm gonna head that one off now. Texture things, filter problems. I say things that I probably shouldn't, but pretty much anybody can get. Yeah, right. And there is a big thing with that. Like a lot of people are starting to say that the gene that is, mental illness and the gene that is the artist that creates the artist is actually one and the same thing. Whether or not these are actual disorders or whether or not these are just chemical differences in our brain that make us see people in the world in a different way and encourage others to do that, which is why I don't really use my autism as a forefront of conversation. I don't normally tell people that, the 5, 6, 7 times in a meeting, I'm like, oh, by the way, I have Asperger's, because I don't want people to think that, that's a handicap or a crutch. I just see the world differently than you do. And maybe you need to take a couple steps in my shoes. You might see something a little bit differently.
I like the opposite approach, but I have the, Weenie! Get up! what is it? I like the opposite approach, but it's also as a reaction to I have the fortune to be a comedian pretty close to full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I notice when I will sometimes with new people like to lead the conversation with I have rapid cycling bipolar 2 because the people that will immediately shy away from that or like palm a blade in their pocket if they think I'm gonna lunge at them or something, then it's a quick indicator that we're not gonna be very good friends.
That's valid.
Yeah,
that is very valid. Yep.
But I'm also allowed. I don't have to really put on an outward identity of small talk and stuff because I hang out with comics, which are some of the craziest fucking people on the planet. Half the time I'll say that and someone will go like, me too, or
yeah, inclusiveness. Yeah, a need to relate.
So where does autism relate to or differ from or become Asperger's?
Asperger's is actually a word they're phasing out anymore just because of the confusion that it does create, and they're trading it out in favor of high-functioning autism, or HFA. Asperger's and autism are basically the same thing. With your kids that you see that people say are autistic, they fit that stereotype, they're hitting themselves in the head, and they don't talk a lot, and they're combative, and usually fit under the idiot savant category where they're really good at one thing in particular, and that's your glaringly obvious this kid has autism. Asperger's, high functioning autism, you think more along the lines of everybody does, Bill Gates.
I see.
Very high functioning. In a lot of ways we are manipulators. That's why a lot of us end up being performers or speech givers of some sort. I share a lot of behavior mannerisms with him. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched a speech with Bill Gates. He has a really hard time looking at people. He spends a lot of time coming here and looking down at the floor or at the podium in front of him. If you catch him looking into the audience, almost every time his wife is standing there. He has a grounder, and he will only look there because he's absolutely terrified of people. It's a social awkward thing. Yeah.
So it's almost like maybe like a halfway point in between autism and I guess people without autism.
Typical and atypical would be the words that you would use in the community nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah, typical brain versus atypical brain. Yeah, and it's, I mean, like I said, most people don't see anything weird about me. If anything, they just think I'm a little eccentric and a little loud.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're not seeing the lights and the movements and the things that I'm seeing. They're not hearing things the way that I'm hearing. And I know after years of trying to explain it to people, I just gave up.
Yeah.
Like, you'll catch me and then I won't say anything. It's like, I'm not going to ask if you fucking heard that. I know you didn't. It's over. I'm going to wait till somebody else brings it up, and then maybe this time I got to be normal.
Yeah, that's one thing I've enjoyed about writing and doing stand-up is the attempt to try and explain that to people. And empathy is you're trying to get into the head of someone else, but I don't know what to call it when you're trying to get other people into your head.
I don't either.
As a stand-up thing, but that's a really interesting practice. One of the bits I wrote about it was just that if I were to explain bipolar or just living with mental illness in general, my experience has been that really just can't trust your own thoughts is most of it. Like, I'm up at 2 a.m. with putting thumbtacks in a potato. Like, this will solve everything. Finally, I have the clarity to change it, and I'll never be sad again.
Yep.
Yeah. I've had moments at 3 a.m. where I was like, fuck all of it. I'm quitting college and I'm learning breakdancing.
Yes.
And then, 4 hours later, I'm collapsed on the floor with a new tracksuit that I spent too much money on. Like, I'll never be able to breakdance.
Yep.
I've done all of that.
Yep. Fuck my real job. I'm going to refab furniture. Ow. 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 Here's my day job again. I've done the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, that's...
It really is. And that's why I think that there really is something to be said for that bridge between mental illness and artistry. because only we really have that capability of getting so far outside of the normalcy that people are in every day, like thumbtacks and potatoes. Do you know how many metaphors I could write? I could write a whole piece. As a matter of fact, I might just to prove a point.
Yeah.
Like, and people are gonna find something inside of that.
Things you might do in the middle of the night with autism.
Let's capitalize on this, Nyland. We can do it.
Yeah.
Million clicks in our AdSense account. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's interesting. You know, I wonder about that, if like mental illness, I've heard of it framed as like two sides of the same coin between mental illness and creativity. But I really wonder, because I think maybe that they correlate more to do with the experiences you'll get because of it and cause you to be more interested. But
Yeah.
if you were just of normal mind to go out and travel and meet people and learn empathy and practice writing, I feel like you would have the same creativity. But with mental illness, I think you're more forced into it, the same kind of experience.
Well, and I think that has something to do with, forced art versus practiced art. I mean, a lot of the times you can tell that. I mean, I think you can practice and you can get better at certain things, but I also do believe that some of it really does have to come from a part of you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be totally normal,
Right.
and achieve those same things. But really, what is the difference between me and the person who didn't get diagnosed yet that's doing the same thing that I'm doing? I mean, it really depends on what groups you're in. It depends on who you were raised by, who in school decided to notice you. I mean, who really determines that stuff? You know,
Right.
that who told me that I had autism? Who told you that you were bipolar? Who created the distinctions for those things? And since when is that ADHD kid not just our next
Right.
Martin Luther King? Like, what happened to those people? Have you noticed we haven't had those big religious or social or any what have you leaders in these last like 30 years? None of them. We don't have that big name that we go, yeah, fuck that guy, or yeah, this guy's awesome. But we also found Prozac.
Yeah.
And we found Klonopin, and we found, Oxycontin, and we found all of these things that took this pain and this anguish and these voices and these insinuations that we created in our own brain, and it quieted them down. So really, is it illness at all? In a lot of ways, and I don't think it is.
Yeah. I two things on that. I think the thing in talking about leaders has a little bit more to do with the internet, because I think the same thing to social projects or groups happened to the music industry in a lot of ways. But before we really get to that, I'll keep that as a side note to touch on if we lose stuff to talk about. What was the last thing you said?
What is mental illness, or is it really
Yeah.
just a unnecessary distinction created by medication?
Yeah, I've heard people talk about that, and I've had I used to believe that before I got on medication. One of the reasons I took so long to get on medication. Now I have the idea of like, wow, if I would have gotten on medication at 14, I might be running the planet by now, because it just opened up and became so easy.
Oh,
so
yeah, and to
suddenly.
a certain extent, I believe that, mental illness does exist, but how much of it is really mental illness and how much of it
just
is
being eccentric and a good writer?
Yeah, and why are people taking that away from you? Like, if you had a good experience, then that's amazing. I've got friends with bipolar disorder and other things that their medication actually made them more able to do the things that they love to do, like create, or even if they were into, renovation or whatever have you, they found the want and will to do that. But for every one person that has that story, me going on medication is actually what made me decide that that was a reality in my case, because, you know, they put me on fluoxetine for the depressive parts, and then they put me on, you know, 5 or 6 other generics, antipsychotics, antidepressants, anti this, anti that, anti this. It's like, you know what? Maybe I was fucking depressed, and that's what made me an interesting person.
Yeah.
And I found once I quit that, and once I started writing it down, and once I started finding a way to put it in a ball and throw it at somebody else, it was almost a better medication for me. And maybe that's what I was supposed to be about. Maybe I was supposed to make those words into balls and throw them at people. Maybe they were supposed to think about that. And maybe that's my way of impacting society in some way, shape, or form. Whereas you might actually have legitimate chemical shit going on that medication actually lets you do exactly what I'm doing right now with weed.
Right. With just a little change. And I wonder too if before medication, would I have been, like, without that option there, if I had been able to stay alive beyond it, would I have figured out a way to write from that place? Because I was never really able to write. I was able to write little bits, and when it would get bad, my writing would improve tenfold and then completely drop off. When I would go into a really dark place, it would be good on the incline, and then once I got to the place of depression, I was incapable of writing. Totally. So I always had a weird experience where people would say, like, your writing is the good music is when the trumpet player is on heroin. And I wonder, because that really hasn't been my experience, in the way that the road to that place can come up with some really good writing, but once you're in it, it's impossible to even collect yourself.
Yeah.
Has been my experience.
Well, and I had a similar experience with my medications that I took as well, because the ride up was fine, and then the ride back down was not. And I think that's everybody works just a little bit different, you know. And I can't even say that I'm unmedicated because of the marijuana I do smoke. You know, maybe I'm just full of myself right now, and maybe if I stopped smoking weed, I would turn into that agoraphobic piece of shit that I remember that didn't leave the house for 2 years and lived off a gas station hot dogs, Mountain Dew. You know, because
I did that, like, hands pressed against the door, looking out the peephole.
Yep.
Yeah, for weeks. Yeah.
Yep. It's like, leave. I don't care if I'm late on my rent. Leave. Get out. But you know what? I came up with the most horrendous shit then too, because I think about it, and I'll never forget when I was tumbling at the time, tumbling, I don't know what to call it. I was writing a lot of prompted poetry, which is like garbage, right? I was just like reading prompts on the internet.
Yeah, it's not from a real place. You're writing about birds and shit.
Yeah, and one day I was just like watching life happen in my apartment. I lived with 3 other people. I was watching it from the end of the hallway in my room with the door open because, you know, I could be social. And I wrote this thing.
If we're going to get crazy.
And it was like, I'm like laundry, a pile of colorful words and phrases tried on and then discarded carelessly to the floor, some crap like that. And I wrote it down, and, you know, I was so proud of myself, and I'm like, that's imagery. And I woke up the next morning, I'm like, I have a problem.
Oh yeah,
I'm an agoraphobic piece of shit, and I'm writing about laundry. I need to be in that mom's poetry class.
Yeah,
that, you know, they give it the Y for like $50.
You know who the real great talents, if they ever did a prompt, like, it's like, write about laundry, and they're like, laundry is like, Mark, that piece of shit. Immediately back to nothing to do with.
Yep.
That's another thing, is it can go back to the conversation of talent, which I don't necessarily believe in either. Because everything I've learned to do is I spend hours, you know, speaking of agoraphobia, locked inside of my apartment for hours, not sleeping, days at a time, learning something. And then eventually I get the courage to go outside and do it. And they're like, wow, he's just so talented and born with it.
Yep.
Like, wow, that cost me a lot for you to call it talent.
Yep. Yep, I used to be the same way. Just lock myself up, learn everything about a thing, and then go to a thing. Be like, I'm the best at this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go to those like wine painting things. I used to love
Oh, yeah?
those because I actually paint. So I'd go to those and they'd give us, the thing that we were painting and everybody would be like, "You're so good. You're so talented. You should paint for a living." I'm like, "Have you ever tried doing anything with paint for a living?
Oh fuck.
Have you ever done that?"
Painting houses is good.
Yeah, painting houses if you want to make $10 an hour anymore because nobody knows the value of hard fucking work, but
Yeah.
painted a couple murals for some people, sold a couple of paintings here and there, and it was like, no, talent.
Yeah.
What is talent?
What is talent? Yeah. I painted for a long time, and I haven't in years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's whenever it comes up, it's always like a little pang, a little thumbtack shoved into my soul a little bit because I just can't. I don't have the time it would take to do it anymore because I still write music as a love of mine. I played music for a while, and I have programs on my computer and instruments, and whenever the mood strikes me, I'll have an idea again and be like, "Oh, I need to get that down right now," and it'll cost me 2 hours.
Yep.
And might fuck my day up, but I have like 300 songs saved on my laptop, maybe 5 of them good.
Yeah, but when you paint and you come up with that idea, it takes another 3 hours just to set it up.
Yeah, guess what? 10 hours over 3 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go buy this paint.
And then it's going to be garbage, and then I have to slash the canvas and find pants.
Yep. Or, like take a putty knife and put some interesting marks in it and paint something else on it. That's what I do with mine. It's like,
yeah,
fuck this. Put something else in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And a painting's never done.
Yeah.
And then you give it to somebody because you don't have the heart to sell it. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not good enough to sell, but if you like it, you can have it. I actually just did that to myself. I've had this this painting that I've had for, I think, 5 years now. It was the last thing I painted. And Rumry really liked it. And he came in my room and he's like, "I really love this thing. This is really pretty. I'd totally put this in my house." He didn't say pretty. I don't remember what word he used, but whatever. Interject girly statement here.
Way cool,
Yeah.
radical.
Yeah, whatever. And I was just like, "You can have it." And I walked away from the situation, and like a day later, I was like, I just let him have it. And it's like, I don't care. It's cool. I still want him to have it. But it's like, how do artists make money? This is when it boils down to that whole starving artist thing.
And it really used to tear me up. The way I feel about bombing on stage is a terrible, near suicidal feeling about that. But it's still never compared to how much I used to hate my paintings.
Yep.
And then people would tell you that, like, I may have painted 2 things that I'm satisfied with to some degree.
Guys, this is why Van Gogh cut his ear off.
Yeah.
This is
Exactly.
Painters are the real crazy people. Like Bob Ross is special. Happy Little Trees, that's not reality.
Yeah.
Most of us just want to dismember ourselves and use it for artwork.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I've used my own blood in a painting before.
Yeah,
that is
probably.
a thing. Yeah.
I know there's some journal somewhere covered in blood from years ago.
Yep. Blood, spit, tears, whatever.
Yeah. That's but when people give you compliments on it, it's I get so, I don't know what you call it, like I spit at the person, basically, snap at them. They're like, "I really like that painting." I'm like, "I hate it." I'm like, "You did it." I'm like, "I hate it more."
It's almost more depreciating than the feeling you get when you get off stage, like you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And that you did a good job. You get to walk away from that performance and you don't have to dissect it. Somebody tells you that your painting was good, you're gonna look back at that piece of shit like 6 times throughout the course of the week and go, "Oh, but that."
Yeah.
And it's not even anything in particular. It's like that shade of blue.
Yeah.
That line. My hand twitched. I really wanted a cigarette. I made a sandwich before I came back to that line.
That's the worst. That was one of those things that used to drive me nuts is if you have 20 hours into a painting and you start to get impatient with it and just ruin it right at the end.
Yep. Yep. I've got a painting like that at home where I decided I was so happy with it, and I used to do the spray paint solar system paintings. I was so happy with it, but it wasn't done, and it wasn't done, and it wasn't done. And I started to get frustrated with it. And I'm like, I'm going to put a ring on this planet. To this day, shittiest painting of a planet that I've ever done. I still have it. I keep it as a reminder that you don't...
Look at what you did.
You don't mix spray paint and acrylic. You don't do that unless you want bad things to happen.
Right.
Oh. Trying too hard.
Yeah, I wonder... You really wonder a lot about the mental illness relation to creativity. I think it just stems more from having a interesting personality
and a willingness to express it. Because I think normalcy would dictate that, you know, people don't want to hear that stuff. And artists and mentally ill people, we don't fucking care. Sit down, shut up, and hear me. Like, that's pretty much where it comes down to. And if you don't have that part in your body that can break away and reach out to that point, then how do you do it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I remember I got involved in, like, really involved in music. I've painted since I was a little kid, but I got involved in music and poetry and comedy and writing in general as a reaction to, I found the band Say Anything.
Aww.
And at that time, like, in my experience and from what I've read, mental illness can really start to show its head somewhere in your early teens.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it gets worse until it peaks around 20, 21, 22.
Which is when I went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah. Drug addiction, evictions, busted down cars, wrecked cars, almost DUIs. Yeah.
I moved back to the Springs because at 22, I was, or 21 actually. No, 20. It doesn't matter.
No.
At 20, I was walking around Denver in cut-off denim shorts, arguing with statues.
Dude.
Like, well, coked out of my mind, where I'd be like yelling at Ben Franklin, and I'd be like, "What'd he say?" And then go over to George Washington and argue with him for a while.
Yep. And when I was 20, actually, it was right in the same window. I was locked up in my apartment that I had moved into 24 hours prior, mind you. I signed a lease on this apartment with my coked out roommate. And we were like, we're going to get this place. And they were like, you have 48 hours to pay the deposit. And I'm like, I'm going to find this money. And my mom comes and gets me 24 hours later. She had just dropped all my shit off. We rented a budget truck. The whole thing was full. And I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, my phone's talking to me and it keeps telling me to call you. And like music was coming out of the AC vents. I was looking down into the parking lot from my 3rd-story apartment, and these people, like my whole family, was looking at me in these cars and playing music and telling me to come outside. And my dad came in and got me and was walking me to the car, and he had his arm around me because I was shaking. And he's like, and I just look at him. I'm like, Dad, Grandpa's in that car. Grandpa's in that car, and I'm freaking out. Grandpa's in that car. He's like, Amber, that car's on bricks. And I went back 2 weeks later after I got sober to talk to the apartment manager to see if I could get out of the eviction. Fuck that. They don't care. And the car was on bricks. There was literally not a tire on it. The windows were broken. And when I walked by that thing 2 weeks prior, it was a car, you know?
What do you mean? Like just
It was just a car.
left?
Yeah, it was a car to me. Like there were wheels and there were people in it and there was sound coming from it. And 2 weeks later, it's just on bricks and it's covered in dust and there's like shit in the windows. And I'm like, oh my God, I was really that gone. You know?
Yeah.
That breaking point.
Oh, but when it first started to hit for me somewhere around 15, my experience had been I'd grown up in an extremely religious family, and it's something that just doesn't exist or taken seriously, or, you know, if the walls are talking you and telling you to kill the babysitter, it's just because of Satan and you can't pray hard enough. That's your diagnosis.
A couple Hail Marys.
So I had recently got out of that and moved back in with my real family, and their reactions to things were not the same, but somewhat based on those tenets, and that you just, you know, everything's fine. act normal, things will be normal. But when you're experiencing those things, it seems like you're the only crazy person on the planet.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. It's like, I'm faking it. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
But then that was my experience when I found the band Say Anything, that I was like, oh, finally, like someone to identify with.
Yep. Mine was Motion City Soundtrack.
Really?
So, yeah. Yep.
That's still, oh, nice.
Yeah, this isn't an affirmation. It's actually Everything Is All Right, the song.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My favorite song is still Fucked Up and Die.
Yeah. Let's get fucked up and die.
Yeah. So that, yeah, I actually found out years later that we have the exact same, both Max Bemis, the songwriter, and I have the exact same mental illness, bipolar 2.
Yep.
Like, so it really worked with identifying with that. But I was like, oh, maybe I can give back through expression to more people that feel isolated in their mental illness.
Yeah.
And in those. And when I started doing stand-up, and I wrote a lot about my mental, I've done a lot less writing on it lately. But I would have people come talk to me about their mental illness or family members' mental illness, and talk about how it, like, my dumb joke actually made it a little bit clearer, like what they were going through.
Yep.
To understand it. And like, that's so strange to put that stuff out there and have other people like who feel isolated identify with it. I think that's a really cool thing, but it's why I got into this. And eventually it's gonna buy me a clown hat or something. I'll get something dumb in return for it.
Yeah. Something.
Oh, you know what? We can go back to talking about leaders and people of importance.
Yeah, you had that
Put a pin in that.
sidebar. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed I was looking at a lot of the bands that I really enjoy from recent, and there won't be, because of the current state of the music industry, there won't be another AC/DC or Van Halen. There just there won't be.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing either, even though people seem to think that it should be. That was great. We need to evolve. You know?
Right, but as people evolve and their music tastes evolve and things go with it, I mean, there won't be another band that's great for its time to make that much success, in a way that, like, my Animal Collective t-shirt will like crumble into dust by the time my kid's wearing it, and then there goes Animal Collective. It's like buried in the internet somewhere.
Oh,
it
bye-bye.
won't live on, you know, to a certain point. But I think that's just a part of the process of having so much out there and access to it with the internet. But then if you ever listen to the radio, you're like, what's gonna live on from this decade that
Rack
will be
City,
played
bitch.
on the it's gonna be, this Rack City bitch is gonna be what they play on our oldies station.
Oh god.
Oh yes, I remember.
You a stupid hoe. You a stupid hoe.
But is that really the musical legacy we'll leave on? I don't think so. When I think back to if you listen to radio, which I do a lot because of some of the work I do.
Absolutely.
What comes up from the time when I was in high school, what they replay is like Five Finger Death Punch, the one song, and then Finger 11, Paralyzed.
Paralyzer. Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I know from the early 2000s that they still play on repeat as part of the rock station.
Yeah.
So like we'll have a Bruno Mars song added to that, and then, you know, maybe a Taylor Swift song, and then that's it for the first 20 years of this millennium.
Yeah, if you listen to the radio, that is pretty much it. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. What has some
But
some
it's like
replay
it
value.
goes for the instant gratification thing I was talking about, where you really can't get past 50 words. That holds true to music, because if you look at like that meme that goes around about how many people wrote Bohemian Rhapsody versus how many people wrote Who Run the World by Beyonce, and you look at the words, there is no more than 50 words in Beyonce's song.
Really?
There is not. And if you look at a lot of the major songs anymore, there are not more than 50 words in them. It's because people don't have the attention span, but people like you and I who appreciate the, you know, the metaphors and the fun stuff, if we want to get all emo, the metaphors and recollections. But
Nope.
those
Yeah, there we go.
there you go.
Win 3 times in the first. You know what the
Yep.
song that gets me the most is Lonely is the Night. You ever heard that one? It's like, lonely is the night when you find yourself alone, all by yourself. Lonely, lonely, lonely.
Is that really the
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yep. It's
See,
it's
and
that
if you
bad.
take that and you boil that down to the roots, there's no more than 50 words in that. People don't have the attention span or the want, and that's why our favorite bands, and like you say, you get inspiration from Say Anything. Motion City Soundtrack's a big one for me.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at those bands, they were amazing, and nobody's gonna give a shit. Like my Motion City Soundtrack t-shirts are gonna go the same way. You know,
Yeah.
my kids are gonna wear them, they're gonna wear out, they're gonna be gone, and nobody's gonna give a crap. And it's not that we are not capable of having the next AC/DC. It's not that we're not capable of having the next Journey. You know, we have some brilliant guitarists in modern music right now that nobody's even hearing
Right.
because they are focused on rack city bitch, rack city bitch,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And that's what I mean. That attention
So-
span will take it away.
Yeah, so we do have those. We have
Mhm.
them. It's just who's smart enough to see it anymore.
Yeah, I must have been seriously fucking up though, because when I used to write music, I would write different choruses for each thing,
Mhm.
which is probably, now that I'm looking back on it, really not good for replay radio value.
Oh yeah, you know, that'll never hit the radio.
That would totally like, oh, and I started singing the chorus and it's different now. Fuck this song.
Well, look at The Tide. Do you listen to The Spill Canvas at all?
I used to. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know the song The Tide?
I don't remember it.
And
It was years ago.
there's 3, count 'em 3, about the children on the beach. It's literally a story song about 3 children on the beach growing up, and it's about, you figure out through the song that it's about their mom, horribly depressed when their father left, cycling through men, drinking problem is pretty apparent in the song itself. And it's one of those epics that you listen to, and it's got that substance and that depth, and the choruses change a little bit depending on the time and in the children's lives, ranging from childhood to adulthood, or young adulthood, when the children actually die at the end of the song. I love that. I love the depth. I love the imagery. I love the symbology and the whole thing, the symbolism. But people don't have the attention span for that. You're right. You can write it and it can be beautiful.
Yeah.
But
Here's one of them. Yeah. That mic is live if you want to talk into that.
Yeah, good.
I can't really hear you without the. And I like Billy Squire too, which is the.
And
Yeah.
are you noticing that in music too, they're even dropping filler words? Like it's getting to the point where choruses are repetitions of 5 or 6 word statements that have very little and, the, but, or even descriptive words. It's like just a, who run the world. I think
I
that
see,
statement
yeah.
right there shows that we're dropping words. We are literally shortening it to where people can remember all 25 or 50 that exist inside of that song. We just don't have the depth anymore.
Oh, I see.
The focus.
Well, let's is it Chris showed up, so I want to restart a new podcast. No worries. You're welcome to stick around if you want to continue to talk music and whatnot. But I'm gonna start over a new episode.
I'm
thing.
gonna
Is there
find-
anything else you wanted to cover before we cap this one off? Or
I was just here to hang out with you. So
all right, cool. Thank you for the conversation. I wanted
Absolutely.
to talk to you because when we talked at Caesar's party, I was like, oh, this is finally the only like really intelligent conversation I've had here after listening to like Rumry talk about butts.
I
And
had
Jay
the
talk
same
about
conversation
farting,
with
and-
Rumry. I was like, I got to actually talk to Nyland. Holy shit.
Yeah. I have a lot of comics on here, and it moves to cum and penises really quick.
Well, we
So it'd
got
be
some
nice.
meat. We got some meat in this one. Yeah, some mental illness and music and vaginas and all kinds of fun stuff. So it was a pleasure. I'm going to go find Rumry, speaking of dick butts. And
All right. Thank you.
you
Thank
have
you,
a good
AJ.
one.